All right, we're going to start a new how I do stuff episode, I guess, on how I'm going to build this coal pile. So what I have here is a power plant fed by train with coal that goes up this conveyor to this transfer house. And then I'm not exactly sure how these transfer houses work. So I don't know if there's an option for it to feed directly into the power plant from the train. I don't see why there wouldn't be. But what it definitely does is at least dumps into the transfer house and then up this taller conveyor, and then it falls into just a pile, a reserve pile for the power plants to use as needed. And that's what this lower conveyor is here. That's where it pulls from the pile back to the transfer house and then up to the conveyor and then down into the plant for burning. So what I'm trying to do is build basically a half of a coal pile, because we've got the backdrop here and a flat wall, obviously, we're going to build it against. And I'm trying to protect the backdrop. This is a vinyl backdrop by railroadjunkies.com. And from my experience with these, they're kind of sensitive to anything touching them other than your own fingers to install. Like if you barely touch tape, it will pull the paint right off. There's a chance the color could bleed. So what I'm trying to do is build a protective cover, I guess, with this 1/2-inch foam. And I'm doing it in the rough shape of how I want this pile to be. So you can see here this triangular section here. This would be the primary pile as it's dumped out of the conveyor. What this longer section is oftentimes there'll be front end loaders or even just bulldozers that will pull away from this pile and then redistribute it near the pile, but off to the side where it can still be pushed down here. And there's going to be a hidden a grate under here. I'm not going to put a grate, but somewhere beneath here, there's a grate where the pile feeds direct, gravity feeds right into the conveyor. And so this reserve pile would be near that. So a bulldozer could just push it over that grate. So that's what this is. This is the start of a mold that I'm going to use for this coal pile. And this is just kind of the first step. So like I did with the river test bed, I'm going to do a whole bunch of these short videos and then stitch them all together for one process. But this is what I'm starting with for now. We'll see how this develops. All right, so what you see here is a series of graduated forms, I guess, for this coal pile. So on the other side, you can see how it basically just reduces down to what will eventually be almost ground level. And I had to stop at 5 layers because then I'm running into these concrete foundations for the conveyor there and the conveyor there and the intake. So from there, that's probably all I'm going to be able to do. Because what I'm going to have to do is allow the coal to fall from the top and then encompass these concrete foundations, which is how it would be in real life. Now this intake concrete here may not be covered, but I think it can be, and I think that's part of what it's there for, is to make sure coal doesn't encroach on top of the conveyor itself and then maybe crush that roof. But this is why you see the reinforced concrete there for this conveyor, is to allow coal to flow around it, because you can see the discharger there is not very far from this support. And so they have to reinforce that because obviously the coal is going to fall down around that. So essentially what this form is to do is to just take up a lot of the space underneath the coal pile, so it's that much less coal they have to use. And then on top of that, it protects the backdrop. So what I'm going to do is glue all these together, and then once they're secured, I might form them a little bit more, but probably not, because I'm really just going to have to let the coal do its natural slope of repose, I think it's called, where we're just going to see how it falls. So the reason why I have this long ramp here is because you have to allow the front end loader to basically climb onto this pile and rise to the top to pull away this peak so that more coal can be discharged without reaching the conveyor. So that's why there's this long ramp here. And I'm going to have to blend that into the landscaping and then probably create some kind of a driveway or something to where the front end loader would maybe park over here by an office, or I'm not sure about that. I haven't thought that far ahead, but I think this angle is a realistic angle that you would see a front end loader or a bulldozer climb up there to move that pile. So I'm going to get these glued, and then we're going to see what that looks like. Okay, so what I've done is I've added some spackling to this mold to kind of I guess, fill in a little bit of the gap. Again, I'm going to let the coal just kind of fall over it to make a natural angle of repose, but I thought I'd go ahead and fill at least some of the gaps to use up a little bit of that space. And then this long ramp looking thing, this is where the front end loaders are going to be able to climb up the actual coal pile to reduce that peak so that when it comes down off the discharger, it doesn't try to stack right up into the discharger and then makes it impossible to unload any more coal. So that's the purpose of this long ramp looking thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sand this down a little bit to get rid of some of the rough edges, and then I'm going to paint the entire thing flat black as a base for the coal. So let's do that and see what that looks like. All right, so we have our coal pile mold, or whatever you want to call this, painted. So it looks a lot better. So basically this is going to be able to hide any spots where the coal that I glue down doesn't quite cover every single spot. And then just to better illustrate, I'm going to put this in position like that, more or less. And then now that I got this front end loader I just got in the mail, it would fit up here like this. And just drive up there to the top to remove that upper pile so it doesn't pile up against the discharge spout. So that's going to be the point of that, and to make this work I'm probably going to have to build a couple little ridges so this thing won't roll off. But so what I'm going to do now is add the coal to this mold, and once that's done, then I need to get this conveyor where I want it, because once I start pouring the coal in position, it's going to fall over these foundations and definitely hold those securely. And you can already see that support member isn't totally vertical, so I need to fix that before I can start laying coal up against this. But for now, let's just get the coal added to the mold, and we'll see what that looks like when I'm done. All right, so what I'm going to do to add the coal is just use this Mod Podge matte finish so it dries clear, and just brush it on. I don't want to let it get too globbed up because we're trying to simulate coal just laying in a pile, so I'm going to make sure it's fairly thin, and I can always add more later. But I definitely want to make sure I try to cover as much of this area as I can. I'm going to do this in small areas and let the coal dry because this glue is going to probably dry pretty quick, as thin as I'm going to have it. And obviously I'm doing this over a well-used baking sheet that the wife said I could have, to hopefully preserve some of the coal that's going to obviously spill off and have it available for reuse. Now, even though this is going to be the vertical face of the mold and there's going to be coal piled in front of it, in case there's any holes that develop or who knows what. I've never built one of these before, so I'm just kind of covering my bases here. And I'm just doing a layer of coal, right? I'm not going to actually pile it here because there's no way it would stay. So I'm just going to basically coat this thing with coal. And I keep saying coal. Woodland Scenics advertises it or labels it as cinders, but it looks like coal to me. I'm sure people use it for that purpose. Now, the one thing I did on the back of this mold, I don't know if you can tell, but I kind of trimmed the back edge downwards. And so that when you see it from the front, you won't be able to see that there is just an edge to the pile. As far as you're going to be able to tell, the pile does spill over to the back. But since this thing sits up against the wall, you're not going to be able to see that. And so I kind of trimmed those edges, hoping that that would give me that desired effect. But there's only one way to really find out. All right, one more application of glue, then we're going to start adding some coal. Oh, ruined the pan already. All right, I don't think the glue is too thick anywhere, so we're going to pause with that. Find a place to put this brush. And then I don't like to use the shakers that Woodland Scenics stores this thing in because there's just too much risk of spillage, or the lid pops off, or it's hard to control. So I use these cheap Tupperware containers for pretty much all my ballast and everything, just because I can control it a little bit better, and just use these little teaspoons to apply it. So we're just going to sprinkle this on here. So I'm going to continue with that, and then I'll check in once I've got this whole thing covered. Okay, so here's my pile that's totally covered, coated with coal, I guess. Still quite a bit of ridges that you can see. I'm hoping to make all those, especially these here, disappear once it's on the layout. But the next step I'm going to show you here in just a second. So the next step is to go ahead and glue these two foundations in place, because they're going to end up getting mostly covered by that coal once I start to pour it in place. And I don't want those to shift. And as you can see, this one's not perfectly perpendicular. So just have to adjust that. Probably just going to glue it with some Mod Podge, just coat it on the edges. It's going to be covered anyway, so you're not going to see it. So once I get those glued down, then I'll place that coal pile in position and start laying the coal that will connect to the pile with the actual layout. And we'll check in after I've got that placed. Okay, so this is what I have so far with the mold in place, mold support, whatever you want to call it, I'm not sure. But as you can see, I've poured more of these cinders as it's been in place. They're flowing around the intake there and the support strut, so it looks exactly like I hoped. I haven't quite finished adding coal to this. There's still some ridges there, as you can see, that I'd like to hide. I'm not 100% worried about it though, because as you can see here, there's a little subsidence from where I've glued, but that's going to happen in the real life too, especially if you have front end loaders that are working to maneuver the pile. There's going to be parts of the pile that are going to start to collapse. And I think I might be able to write that off as that, but I have achieved the look that I was looking for, and more importantly, the ability to work with the backdrop without ruining the backdrop. And as you can see here, it doesn't make contact with the backdrop at all. So that's what I was really worried about, was having to glue all this stuff in place with possible leaching onto the backdrop, and that hasn't happened at all. So I could even remove this backdrop, I think, if I wanted to. So that's kind of what I was going for. Obviously, that wouldn't be necessary for anybody who's done a painted backdrop, or maybe there's a way I could have protected the backdrop. I'm not sure, but this is what I was going for. I still have to finish this little end here. I didn't quite get that the end tapered off the way I wanted, but that's not going to be a big deal. I'll just add another piece of foam here in the corner to taper that down, similar to how I did that whole large piece. But that's what I was going for. Feel free to judge at your leisure. It doesn't make any difference to me. This is kind of what I wanted, so I'm sure there's 50 different ways this could have been done, but I like how this turned out. Still a little more work to do on it, but I'm calling that detail work at this point. So that's about it for now. Thanks for watching.